Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Jayden Bryce Show, the show where we talk about the latest, hottest topics in the world of not pop culture, Jesus Christ. Talk about the hottest topics in the world of sports. I'm your host, Jayden, and I am back with you all. I took the week off. I did not do a show on Friday. I wanted to take that time and enjoy my Thanksgiving break, catch up on some homework, and spend some time with some family. Had a lot of football going on this weekend. I hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving, and I am excited to get back and discuss some sports with you all. Today, I got a heavy lined up show for y'all. I have not been able to give you all my thoughts on the Cowboys and Chiefs game from Thanksgiving Day. We're going to talk about some Bears and Eagles. The main headliner for today's show, even though I don't consume college football, but this Lane Kiffin story is beyond me, and I have a very, very vague perspective on that. And then we're going to discuss some games from yesterday, Panthers and Rams. And then we're going to get to some Bills and Steelers. It's great and glad to be back with you all. Kind of stuttering a little bit over my words. It's been a minute. It's been almost 5 days since I've been in front of the camera or live. So we got to get back into action. When you take this time, when you're so young with me in this industry and you take a couple days off, you seem to be a little rusty. So we're a little rusty to open this thing out. But let's go ahead and get right into it. But before we get into all that, like, subscribe, comment down below any of the comments that you guys want to discuss down below in my comment section for the live show. And without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get right into it. Thanksgiving Day. This game had a lot of implications on it. I discussed it on Wednesday. This was pretty much a gotta-win game for Dallas and Kansas City. For the Chiefs, I felt like they had a more legit run to get into the playoffs, a legit chance to get into the playoffs in comparison to the Cowboys. And I was like, I'm scared because this is Patrick Mahomes. And this is Patrick Mahomes in a situation where it's win or go home. And it felt like a Brady-esque type situation where it's like, how can you count out Patrick Mahomes? So the Dallas Cowboys had a lot going up against them on Thursday. And I was getting ready to have my turkey, a little nervous, but my Dallas Cowboys come out with a very, very convincing victory against the Kansas City Chiefs. My one takeaway for the Cowboys is really, you got to love the future for Dallas. The trades have been great when it pertains to Quentin Williams, Logan Wilson. He's flashed on the screen a little bit. You've got a little healthy. Demarion Overshawn has really, really shown his color so far on the defense alongside Siobhan Reveille. I don't know if you pronounce his name Siobhan Reveille or Siobhan Reveille. A lot of people are pronouncing his name really weird and really odd. So I'm going to say Siobhan Reveille because that's, from pronunciation reasons, that's kind of how it looks. It looks like it needs to be pronounced. But you got them back. And you got to give Jerry Jones a lot of credit. We gave him a lot of crap for making moves late within the season. Now, I kind of would have wished he would have made these moves a whole lot sooner. Because if you wouldn't have lost to the Cardinals and you wouldn't have lost to the Panthers. Now, their Panthers loss continues each week to look a little better. And you can't really kill the Cowboys for losing to the Panthers because if you did just see yesterday, the Panthers beat the Rams and they were the number 1 seed. But if Jerry would have made these trades sooner, I really think Dallas would be sitting pretty. I think Dallas would possibly be number 1 in their division because the Eagles are on a steady, dying hill, and we'll get to them in the next topic. But the Dallas Cowboys are playing confident under Brian Schottenheimer. When you watched that game on Thursday and you saw how good Dak played, Dak Prescott from a statistical standpoint, he was 27 for 39, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. They were able to run the ball decently well. Javonte Williams only had 3.5 yards a carry, but Malik Davis came in. He had that very long run. He averaged 15.7 yards a carry on 3 rushes. And of course, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, that combo really showed up on Thursday. They were exceptional. CeeDee Lamb had his get back game. I made a video about it on the podcast on Wednesday. CeeDee Lamb, we got to have you this game because George Pickens didn't seem like he was going to be 100%. It kind of looked like that seemed to be true. He was more like 80. He played a whole lot better than what I expected him to. But CeeDee Lamb was going to need to show up, and he did. CeeDee had 7 for $112 and a touchdown. George Pickens had 6 for 88. Jake Ferguson had 5 for 36. So from the box score, the Dallas Cowboys played well. I feel like, and it's the same testament I had when I was reacting to their win last Sunday when they had the comeback victory against the Eagles. This game here felt like another game. If it was a past Cowboys team, they lose that game. You really have not been able to bet on the Dallas Cowboys whenever you're playing a winning team, a tough opponent, and when it's a situation when their back is against the wall, they never show up and play well. But we got to give credit to where credit is due. Under Brian Schottenheimer, so far this season, with all these trades, and their future is looking to trend towards a pretty positive slope, so to speak, a trajectory. The Dallas Cowboys have played well under Brian Schottenheimer. We got to give credit to CD. We got to give credit to Dak. We got to give credit to George Pickens. We got to give credit to the defense. They were able to withstand Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, he was making absolute dynamic plays on the field in that game on Thursday. Specifically, the final drive where he threw that 40, not the final drive, but it might have been their final drive or their second to last drive where he threw a 40-yard bomb to Xavier Worthy. And he done so rolling out of the pocket, avoids Quentin Williams when Quentin Williams literally trips his foot. He looks like he's going to stumble and fall. He doesn't. As Araku misses him, I think that might have been the same play. And then he throws on the run the absolute bomb to Xavier Worthy. It's just Patrick Mahomes was making absolute championship plays. But we got to give credit to the defense. They held Patrick Mahomes to 23 for 34. Had 4 touchdowns. They got and sacked him 3 times. Kareem Hunt, he had somewhat success running the football. He averaged 4.1 yards a carry. And Rashee Rice, he had a pretty good day too. The Cowboys benefited for a couple of key drops here and there, but when it came to it, the defense showed up, got stops when they needed to, and allowed their offense to close the game out. So great win for the Dallas Cowboys. When it pertains to just playoffs, though, it's still super steep for me. The Panthers and the Cardinals losses continue to seem and deem rough for the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm going to discuss it more. I just want to keep this short and brief because we've got to get to the Chiefs. When you look at the NFC and how things are shaping up, I really don't know if 10 wins is going to get you to 7th seed, which is absolutely tragic. Given you look in comparison to the AFC, and the 6-6 Baltimore Ravens are currently a 4th seed, and the 6-5-1 Cowboys are currently a 9th seed in the NFC. It's absolutely crazy. But the playoffs is still steep. I think they still have a chance to run the table. I really do. I really do think Dallas has a chance to run the table. But they're going to need some help. Now, with the Eagles, the way they've looked, it might be a chance that Dallas could win the division and get a 3 seed. So there's still a lot of hope riding for the Dallas Cowboys. And hopefully they got a big game on Thursday against the Lions where they need a big win. Let's transition over to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs, guys, let's just be totally honest. Kansas City is just not a good football team. Mahomes played really well on Thursday. This loss is really, really not on him. This was my one takeaway. Just the Kansas City Chiefs are not a good football team. Mahomes played well, but the people around him not so much. Rashee Rice, statistically, when you look at him, he was 8 for 92, but he had a couple of key drops, specifically that one big drop on their final drive. It was the second or last drive or the final drive of the game, one or the two, that forced the 3 and out. Xavier Worthy, didn't see him much. He was mostly used on a bunch of end arounds and run plays. Travis Kelce made plays here or there. And but overall, from a whole grand scheme of things, statistically, you can't tell, but when you watch the game, the greatness of Patrick Mahomes was on full display. And if it wasn't for Patrick Mahomes making the plays that he was, they wouldn't even been in this game. Like, the game didn't even really feel that close. It was just the greatness of Patrick Mahomes. Like the one play that I was talking about earlier, the 42-yard pass to Xavier Worthy. And then on 4th down, needed touchdown, and Patrick Mahomes rolls out to his left and throws the ball to Rashee Rice. Like, not a lot of quarterbacks are making that throw. Let's just be 100% honest. So Patrick Mahomes made a lot of big plays to keep them in this game. And another key factor for the reason why they lost was penalties. The penalties in this game for the Chiefs were absolutely atrocious. They had 10 penalties for 119 yards. Now, a lot of the penalties, I have to be totally honest, a lot of ticky-tacky calls. Like the one, it was in the second quarter or the third quarter. I want to say it was probably the third quarter. They called a offensive pass interference on Xavier Worthy on a kind of a pick play. The Cowboys were in man coverage. But it was absolutely atrocious call because Xavier Worthy, whoever was guarding Xavier Worthy, they were on him, no problem. It was just a smart schematic play call by Andy Reid, scheming up that pick, and Xavier Worthy did his job. The guy who was guarding, I think it might have been Rashee Rice who caught the ball, but whoever that was, the other receiver, he ran into his own guy. And, they flagged him for pass interference. Is it Christian McDuffie? Trent McDuffie, sorry. Trent McDuffie was getting picked on. Like, CeeDee Lamb was picking on him all day, which was very shocking. You really think, like, okay, Trent McDuffie, and that was my question. Like, CeeDee Lamb's had a couple bad games, and Trent McDuffie is a former all-pro cornerback. So I was like, dang, I don't like that matchup. So Jalen Watson versus George Pickens, I like that matchup better. That ended up not being the case. Christian McDuffie, why do I want to say Christian McDuffie? Trent McDuffie was getting absolutely picked on. He had a lot of bogus pass interference calls on him. I can't agree with that. And another thing, too, the reason why they lost is their defense. Their defense got absolutely torched, and that's the thing. Adding on Trent McDuffie getting penalized. Jalen Watson got penalized a couple of times, too. I really didn't like the pass interference and holding call that he got on the final drive there for the Cowboys. Weren't in total love with that call. They couldn't get no pass rush. The sentiment we've had with the Kansas City Chiefs is that they cannot get a pass rush unless they blitz. That happened. It benefited them on the first drive, and you got a pick off of Dak Prescott. But kudos to Schottenheimer, making adjusting to that blitz. After that first drive for the Chiefs, they could not stop the Cowboys whatsoever. And if you're Kansas City, this loss is really upsetting from this grand scheme of things. The AFC is absolutely wide open. When you even look at the Chiefs' contemporaries in their own division, the Broncos last night, we're not going to discuss them, but I will at a later date. They did not look good yesterday. The Chargers are hurt right now with Justin Herbert. The AFC is wide open. You have Trevor Lawrence. The Texans, like all these teams that are really not that good. The Colts have fallen off their rocker. Like, if you are the Chiefs, you are really, really disappointed this season because of the parity that is going on and the potential to winning out in the AFC and getting to another Super Bowl was a very good opportunity and really in play for them this year. And they are going to miss the playoffs. Until something drastically happens, I do not see the Kansas City Chiefs making the playoffs. It's a sad reality given the type of season that Patrick Mahomes has had. It is not a great season up to his standards. There's no doubt about that. But when you think about the parity and how wide open the AFC is this season, and honestly, how the NFC is stacking up. The Eagles are falling off a rocker. The Rams had a very, very bad loss yesterday against the Carolina Panthers. The NFL this year, period, it seems like it's wide open. So if you're a Kansas City Chiefs team, you're like, man, we missed out on a grand opportunity. You're 6-6, and your chances to get into the playoffs feel like it's non-existent. The Colts still have a good chance to get in, even though they fell off the face of the earth the last couple of weeks. Most of that has to do with their quarterback having a big injury. But Tony Romo pointed this part out really well in the broadcast. It was who was currently in the wild card. I think things have shifted a little bit after yesterday. But originally, the wild card was the Texans, Jaguars, and I think it was Chargers. All three of those teams owned the tiebreaker against the Chiefs because they beat the Chiefs. So, technically, it might have not been the Texans. It might have been another team. Anyways, it was the three teams that the Chiefs have lost to. The Chiefs, as things currently stand, have a tough shot because they don't even have the tiebreaker, and they're 2 games away from the people who were in the wild card spot. And there's only 5 games left in the season. So it's a bad day for the Chiefs. Kudos to my Dallas Cowboys. We're going to go ahead and move on. And they come out with a victory. And the future's bright for the Dallas Cowboys. Even if they don't make the playoffs, going into next season, you're going to be super happy if you're a Cowboys fan. But if you are a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and if you're anybody in that locker room, in that organization, the Hunt family, you're a little disappointed in how this season has gone because of the opportunities that are present in not only in the AFC, but in the NFL as a whole. All right, time to get to the game that I was really shocked about the outcome. I was excited for it to watch it. You know, it's Black Friday. I don't really shop on Black Friday. Never have, never will. I'm the type of guy and a lot of this has to do with school as well. You know, when I get time off of school, I don't feel like stressing myself out, which, you know, shopping for me is very stressful. So I never shop for Black Friday. The day after Thanksgiving for me is just I'm relaxing, eating my leftovers from all that food that my mother fixed on Thursday. And the last couple years, I've had the benefit of being able to watch a football game on Black Friday. So I was very much excited for this game. And plus, it's 2 teams that I have covered all year, in the Eagles and the Bears. And there was like, God, I can't wait to see all the storylines I can get out of this game. And when I watched, I was like, this game is great. And my main takeaway from the Bears is this. Nobody wanted to believe in the Bears, but I did. They got a great coach. They got a quarterback who isn't playing his absolute best that I know he probably wants to play at, and what Ben Johnson wants him to play at. But they've won 9 out of their last 10, and the culture that Ben Johnson has set is an absolute winning culture. When you look at that game yesterday, the Philadelphia Eagles got destroyed by the Chicago Bears. It was really shocking, and Nick Sirianni pointed this out, you know, coming out of the half into the third quarter when they had the mid-game interview with whoever interviewed him. He was like, man, you know, for us to get dominated like we are, 10-3, I think was the score, yeah, 10-3, going into the second half, sign me up as a coach. I was not, for once, I didn't disagree with something Nick Sirianni was saying. If you do not know, I don't like this coach. A lot of this has to do with me being a Cowboys fan, so I despise the Eagles in all facets. But I don't like the guy. You know, he does nothing. Like, he doesn't even coach. He's just a game manager. And we'll harp about the Eagles later. But this points to the fact that, the Bears were getting destroyed. Honestly, you got to give kudos to the Eagles defense for keeping the Eagles in this game, because the Bears were offensively just juggernauts in comparison to that defense. And defensively, shockingly, with all the injuries, they didn't even have all their linebackers. They gave Jalen Hurts the work, and that offensive line the work on Friday. The Bears altogether ran for 281 yards. That is just altogether. But Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift both altogether ran for 255 yards. Between 40 carries, they ran for 255 yards. So you got 255 divided by 40. What is that, ladies and gentlemen? They averaged 6.375 yards a carry. They were averaging almost 6.5 yards a rush. So, do the math. In that game on Friday, fresh set of, 1st and 10, you hand the ball off twice, they were 2 times in a row, they were getting a first down. Like, that running game of Ben Johnson, a lot of this has to do with scheme, but man, that dominating running back tandem, their O-line played absolutely fantastic. Like, we got to give credit to Ben Johnson, and we saw this the whole tenure he was with the Lions. Schematically, he has to be one of the best run schemers in the NFL. It's no coincidence that we've seen the tandem of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery has not been the best this year since Ben Johnson left. And so far this season, he's made DeAndre Swift and this guy, Cal Monungai, he's a 7th round pick. Like, Cal Monungai looks like one of the, I wouldn't say one of the best backs in the league, but obviously behind DeAndre Swift, he is more than a capable running back in this league. Even the small amount of time where he had to be the number one because DeAndre Swift was hurt, he looked really good. If you ask the Pittsburgh Steelers, I know they drafted this guy, on DeAndre Johnson or something like that. I can't remember where he went to college from. I think he went to Iowa. And, he's on the Steelers. Like, he can't even see the field. And you got this guy, and I think that guy they drafted, he was like a 3rd, 4th round pick. And you got this guy, Kyle Monungai, 7th round pick. He's just out here balling for the Bears. 22 carries, 130 yards, averaged 6 yards a carry, had a touchdown, had a long run of 31 yards. Like, what Ben Johnson is doing over there, it is really, really just really unprecedented. As of today, this wasn't the story on Friday, but after the Rams lost yesterday, the Bears are number 1 in the NFC. Let me repeat that again. The Chicago Bears are currently the number 1 seed in the NFL through 13 weeks into the NFL season, going into December. If you asked me that 3 months ago before the season starts, like, Jayden, you know what? The Chicago Bears, led by Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, was going to be the number 1 seed going into 75% of the season being over. I was like, that guy, Caleb Williams, who had a lot of question marks going into the season, that guy and Ben Johnson, who not really got much of a personality as a head coach, doesn't do much for me at the podium, doesn't seem like a leader, doesn't talk much. I'm like, that tandem is going to be number 1 in the NFC after week 13. Pay up, big dude, big dog. Give me that bet. Guess what? I lost money because this tandem, this marriage, and I discussed it last week. And I know people are probably thinking I'm crazy. Like, yeah, this marriage worked. And the Bears are playing like this and winning like this when Caleb Williams is not playing that good. You watched that game on Friday. The Bears left a couple points on the board because Caleb Williams, he has a lot of issues with his mechanics. That one throw that he missed to Rome Odunze in the end zone, bad mechanics, bad throw. He misses a lot of gimme balls. But Caleb Williams can play better. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, he makes plays when he needs to make plays. And this is a good testament to that because you had the drive, I think if I remember correctly, you had the drive where the Eagles wake up all of a sudden going into the second half. They go down and score with a big throw to A.J. Brown. Come back next drive. He throws the unfortunate pick. You try and throw a screen pass, and the guy, what's that? He's a actually good edge rusher for the Eagles. I can't remember. He's like number 58. He's not even on their box score for some odd reason. Why is he on the box score? He got a pick. Anyways, he got an interception, and yeah, he's not even on the box score. I don't know why, but he got an Jalen Hunt. Yes, this fella right here. He gets the interception, and it's kind of like, and I think Philly goes down, and no, is that when Philly fumbled the ball with the tush push? I can't quite remember. It's been 3 days since this game, but you know what I'm talking about. You remember at one point the score was 10-9, and you're sitting here thinking it's like, oh God, this game might get out of hand. And then Caleb Williams made plays when he need to. He led a touchdown drive, took him down to the house, and took him to another touchdown drive to ice the game. That throw that he made over there, it was one of their last touchdowns. That throw to Cole Kmet is like, that was a first round pick type of throw that he made, and it iced the game. Like, Caleb Williams, say what you want. He might have bad mechanics. He might have some moments here or there where you're like, man, Caleb Williams, what is going on? But let's be honest. For the most part, he makes plays and he makes clutch plays when he needs to, and that is a testament and a reason why the Bears are currently number 1 in the NFC and is a really good team right now. But another conversation we need to have on the other spectrum and the other side of the room is, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm not being a hater. I'm not. I'm totally unbiased when I make my commentary, when I talk about these teams. And I've hinted around this for a couple weeks now. I watch football. And the non-biased brain that I have, you watch this team, and they got a lot of problems. And when I brought up the idea that the 2023 Eagles might be back, obviously I don't have the biggest audience, but if I would have said that on a local radio show, which I probably will in the future, if I said that on a local radio show, if I said that on a national radio show, national airwaves, my comment section would be absolutely grilling me by Philadelphia Eagles fans because they are naive, they are idiotic at times, and their fan base they're too emotionally tied to the team that they can't see their flaws in their team. They call Dallas Cowboys fans naive. These guys in Philadelphia, they are on another level. Because let's be totally honest here, 100% honest, Jalen Hurts has been bad this year. Kevin Patullo's play calling is absolutely abysmal. Jalen Hurts, Friday, 19 for 34, 2 touchdowns, 1 atrocious interception. He had a quarterback rating of 19. He averaged 6.8 yards per throw. Not good. Not to also put some salt into the wound. The one throw where Devontae Smith read it right, it was man coverage. Jalen Hurts just doesn't throw him a good ball. He expected Devontae Smith to sit, I guess. But Devontae Smith is not going to sit if it's man coverage. Just misreading by Jalen Hurts, and they're not on the same page. Cost him some points. Not to mention on that same play as well, that, Dallas Goedert was wide open on a seam route on that same play. Wide open. Jalen Hurts has not been good this year. And you know, in Jalen Hurts' defense, he's had a new offensive coordinator. If I remember correctly, every single season he's been the quarterback under the helm for the Philadelphia Eagles. That takes a toll on your quarterback. Having to learn a new system of play calling and scheme every single year takes a toll. And if you don't have the Kellen Moores taking over, somebody like a Shane Steichen who are offensive gurus, your quarterback's going to have problems. We saw that with Brian Johnson in 2023, and this year under Kevin Patullo, we are seeing it again. This team, when you watched him, is literal shades of 2023 Eagles. You were able to give the ball to A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown had 123 yards receiving, 12 targets, 10 catches, and he had 2 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley, able to run the ball, but they didn't do it enough. Only ran it 13 times. Don't understand for the life of me why you have Jalen Hurts dropping back and throwing 34 times in those weather conditions. Defeats me. You know, Ben Johnson, yeah, you can say Caleb Williams threw the ball 36 times, but guess what? He ran the ball 40 times. The Eagles, in comparison, ran it not even half of that. They only ran the ball 13 times, and they were able to have success. So there are some play calling issues there with Kevin Patullo. And defensively, they got absolutely ran over. They did. They had a bad day. But they only held the Bears to 24 points. In today's age of the NFL, I've said it multiple times, when you hold a team to 24 points, 9 times out of 10, well, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, you kind of want to come away with the win in that ball game. You got to. This offense is what it is. It's bland scheme-wise. They have no run game. The offensive line has not played good. And to cap it off, a little cherry on top, the quarterback in Jalen Hurts has not played well this season. And honestly, and I'd even told my dad this, you know, it was one of those games where it was an ugly first half for the Eagles all around. And I was about to say, all right, Dad, here we go. The Bears let them hang around. You're only up 1 touchdown. And I'm sitting here like, you know what? They're about to do the classic Eagles thing that they did against the Rams. They did it against the Vikings. And, they did it with the Cowboys. One bad half, the next half, oh yeah, they're just going to light it up on offense. I told Dad, I'm like, watch, Philly's about to score 3 straight drives. Mark my words. Was I absolutely wrong? We didn't get that. And if you're Philly, I can't really put this on the defense because, they only scored 24 points. Like 10-3 at the half, 10-9 in the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter. At some point, you got to look at the offense and be like, man, can you do something for me? This was not on Vic Fangio and that defense at all. And another takeaway you can have for the Eagles is they might be in danger of losing the division. The Cowboys are currently a game and a half back. Both of their schedules are relatively light. The Dallas Cowboys, honestly, this coming up game against the Lions is going to be their hardest game for the rest of the season. And that game seems to be very favorable for them because it seems that Amon-Ra St. Brown is not going to be available for the Lions. And we saw him against the Packers, which I didn't discuss them because I didn't really watch that game that much and really didn't have much big of a takeaway between either team. But when you watch them, it's like they're beatable. Personally, I don't think it will happen because I still think Philly's schedule coming up, unless Philadelphia really falls off their rocker, they have to play the Chargers on Monday night. It seems they might be without Justin Herbert for the Chargers, so you might get Trey Lance at quarterback. You should win that game. You play the Raiders as well. You should win that game. You got Washington. That seems like it might not be as easy of a game that you might think because they gave the Broncos a run for their money. They got to play them at home, on the road and at home. So you still got to play them twice, and you still got to play a Bills team that is more than likely going to be desperate and playing for seeding come week 17. So your schedule is honestly kind of rough. You might see a couple losses, and when you compare it to Dallas, the rest of their schedule, you got to play a Vikings team who don't even have a quarterback. You got Detroit, who are going to be without their number 1 wide receiver. Then you got the Chargers, who I think Dallas can beat them. You got them at home. They're coming to Dallas. And you got the Giants again, and you have the Commanders. So if you're the Eagles, look, I don't think it's going to happen, but you are in absolute danger of losing that division, which would be the same thing. This would be the same exact thing that happened to Philly in 2023. I hope it happens because I want to see my team in the playoffs. But man, Philadelphia Eagles, they really, really do have to get it together. Really do. All right, long segments. I wanted to keep these a lot short, but man, there's a lot of storylines to take away from these games. All right, let's go ahead and move on, get things a little bit faster going. We're already been in this thing 30 minutes. I got to get this show over in like the next 45 minutes. Quick takeaway from the Panthers and the Rams. Great game. I watched it all the way through because it was kind of interesting. Like, let's just go ahead and be honest with this. Week 13, all the good teams played on Thanksgiving and on Black Friday. Yesterday's schedule in the NFL, my lord, was it boring. Eyesores, couldn't watch. The 1 o'clock window honestly had the best games. You had a couple. You had San Francisco and the Browns, which didn't even turn out to be that good of a game. You had this game, the Rams and the Panthers, and there was like a couple other good games as well. 4 o'clock window sucked. And last night's game between the Broncos and Washington ended up being pretty good. But I thought the game was going to be so bad. I told my girlfriend, I'm like, you know what, let's just watch a movie. I don't even want to watch this game. But, Bo Nix continues to do Bo Nix things. But we'll discuss that later on. But let's get to the Panthers and the Rams. The shocker. My main takeaway was like, you know what, Dave Canales, you watched the show last week, man. Did you watch the podcast on Wednesday? If you guys weren't aware, we had a discussion at Carolina. You have a great running back duo with Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle, and you only gave them 9 carries against the San Francisco 49ers on the road. Kind of helping out. You got to help out your young quarterback here. And Dave Canales watched the show, and yesterday, Dave Canales pulled a Ben Johnson. He said, I don't care what the circumstances is. I don't care if we're down 7. I don't care if we're down 10. I don't care if we're down 17. We are going to run this football. They did. They ran the ball 35 times. And Chuba Hubbard averaged 4.9 yards a carry, and Rico Dowdle had 3.2. Chuba Hubbard pretty much had his breaking out game. We know he's been the bell cow back for the Panthers. Been a great back the last couple of years. They even signed him to a contract in the offseason. And he was able to finally show his colors and take all the shine away from Rico Dowdle, who seems like he was going to take his position there for a little while. So he had success yesterday. And Bryce Young. Take away from Bryce Young as well. That's the Bryce Young we wanted to see against San Francisco. That's the Bryce Young that I kind of anticipated to see against San Francisco because, let's be honest, San Francisco is a much worse defense in comparison to the Rams. Like, the Rams have players all around. Granted, Emmanuel Forbes yesterday got absolutely picked on, and he gave up like 3 touchdowns. But when you look at just roster-wise on paper, like, the Rams have the better defense. Like, San Francisco don't even have their 2 all-pro players defensively on their team. And Bryce Young was able would benefit the Dave Canales. Their tandem was on cue yesterday. They ran the ball, got play action, got check downs, and you win a ball game and you score 31 points. That is the recipe for success for Carolina. Bryce Young only throws the ball 20 times, commits no turnovers, throws through 3 touchdowns. And those 3 touchdowns, one of them was a little baby swing pass, but those other 2 touchdown throws were big throws. One was on 4th down. It was 4th and 2, 4th and 3. They were at the Rams' 30, 40-yard line. And if you saw the weather yesterday in Carolina, the weather yesterday here was absolutely abysmal. And if you're Bryce Young, like, that's for any quarterback. And a quarterback like Bryce Young, who, let's be honest, he has accuracy issues and just quarterback being the conductor of offense issues. So if you're telling me, in comparison to Bryce Young or Matt Stafford, who would have the better day yesterday, I'm like, Matt Stafford by a mile. That didn't end up being the case. Bryce Young outplayed Matt Stafford yesterday. He didn't turn the ball over, and he made big throws, and he comes away with the win. Tedoroa McMillan, he had the 1 catch, but it was for 43 yards. The big 4th down throw that he got from Bryce Young. And like Carolina, like, there are no slouches. And I hinted around this earlier when we were discussing, the Cowboys losing against the Panthers. I'm like, the guys, like, the Panthers are not an easy out like people want them to be. Like, the Panthers are actually a pretty good football team. They are young, and I know a lot of people have brought up the trade with the Bears. The trade got Caleb Williams, Luther Burden, all these offensive linemen. Like, the Bears have won that trade. But if you're Carolina, like, I think the thing with Carolina and Bryce Young, they have to find the formula for success between the marriage between Dave Canales and Bryce Young. And it's the same type of problem that you have with Caleb Williams. Let's be honest, Caleb Williams has not had a drastically better season in comparison to Bryce Young. But they're both quarterbacks who, let's be honest, they have accuracy issues. But the big thing that Caleb has on Bryce Young right now is Caleb Williams, when the thick has gotten thin, he's came up and made some plays. That hasn't been the case with Bryce Young, but yesterday was a reason why people, and I'm guilty of this too, Bryce Young is a very pulverizing figure and topic. Like, you gave up all this draft capital for this guy, and it's really going to be hard to move off of him if you are the Carolina Panthers because he has consistency issues. When you see this Bryce Young on Sunday, you beat the number 1 team in the NFC. It's like, dang, Bryce Young, can I get this some more? Like, where is this at any other time? That's what we've said about Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. I like Dave Canales as a coach. I was sitting here and scratching my head last week when I was discussing it. I'm like, Dave, why did we run the ball 9 times? You have a young quarterback who has consistency issues. The best thing, and I've said this millions of the time because Dak Prescott's been my quarterback for the last 10 years. I've seen it. You set up Dak Prescott early in his career. He had Ezekiel Elliott. What did Jason Garrett do? He ran the football. And that led Dak Prescott in his rookie season, and they were the number 1 seed. You ran the football. And that was back in the day and age where there was no such thing as a dual running back tandem. You had that one bell cow back, and over time, that ended up screwing Dak Prescott over because Ezekiel Elliott aged really bad. But in this new age, to where we've seen it with the 49ers, they first started it with the dual running back thing. And now the Lions did it, and now the Bears are doing it, and now you see it in Carolina. You have a dual running back thing where it's like, okay, I want to give my backs no more than 20 carries apiece. We're not having 30, 40 carries for one running back. So you give this guy, you start the dual running back tandem, you set your quarterback up to succeed, set up to play action, and your quarterback is going to have a good day. Bryce Young had a quarterback rating of 85, and he had a passer rating of almost a perfect passer rating. So Carolina, this is their recipe for success. But, you know, my big takeaway with the Rams, and I'm defending the Rams here, it's hard to go coast to coast. It isn't easy. You played in a monsoon. So I'm giving the Rams a pass. Look, they were bound to lose the game. You're talking about going from LA all the way coast to coast, from LA to the Carolinas. 1 o'clock kickoff, which is something the Rams are not used to in our time zone. A 1 o'clock kickoff here is a 10 in the morning kickoff in LA. So that is a big, big difference. And again, we are talking about a Rams team who plays in Los Angeles. You play indoors. And you're playing in 70-degree weather. And one bad weekend in Carolina, you don't pull up on indoors. You don't pull up on sunny skies. You're playing in a monsoon yesterday, which I live 2 hours away from Charlotte, and it was calling for rain here, and I was like, it didn't end up raining. It was actually pretty I had a nice little overcast for most of the day, but you look on the TV, it's an absolute monsoon in Carolina. Raining, windy, cold. I'm like, couldn't be me. Didn't want to be in that game. So obviously the Rams are not going to play good in those conditions, and that led to Matt Stafford. He didn't play well, but you'll live with Matt Stafford being the reason why you lose, because I don't expect this performance out of Matt Stafford. 18 for 28, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, had 3 turnovers altogether because he had a bad fumble near the end of the game that gave the Carolina the W. But overall, the Rams had success. Blake Corum, he ran for 11.5 yards. Kyron Williams ran for 5.5 yards. Puka Nacua made an exceptional catch. Devontae Adams had 2 touchdowns. Like, there was a lot of good that happened for the Rams. It was just one of those games where defensively, I mean, they could not get off the field on third down. Bryce Young, that they ran them down and wore them down and made big plays when they needed to. And that fumble by Matt Stafford was very costly. I think outside of maybe the defense, the big culprit to them losing yesterday, was Matt Stafford. And I'm not betting on Matt Stafford to lose games like that going forward, because, I questioned him playing in the weather, but last year in the playoffs, like, if it wasn't for a play here or there, they could have beat the Eagles in snow last year. So I'm not about to sit here and be like, oh, the Rams can't win in inclement weather. That's a lie. They almost did last year. So I think the Rams are fine. I kind of questioned them in inclement weather, but I'm not about to sit here and be like, oh, there's no shot they can win a game in inclement weather. They can. They almost done it last year. And I trust Matthew Stafford, the defensive line, Sean McVay, defense coordinator, that whole regime over there. I think they'll figure it out. This is just one of those one-offs. You had a bad loss. You had to go coast to coast, and you come away with a loss. But you're still in the shot for the number 1 seed in your division. They're fine. I think the Rams are fine. All right, let's move on to one more game from yesterday. Again, this slate was absolutely abysmal. So there's not much that I really want to talk about as far as games, but I wanted to go ahead and talk about the Bills and the Steelers, because there are a couple of storylines that I really wanted to hit on coming out of this game. I didn't watch much of this game. I watched the highlights, and I got up with a couple things. And my number 1 takeaway for the Bills is, overall, let's be honest, unless they win the division, and let's not even say this, the Bills just haven't played good football. Well, I'll say that's part of my next segment. The Bills haven't played good football. The last couple of weeks, if you look at the Buffalo Bills' schedule, the Buffalo Bills, since their loss to the Atlanta Falcons, they lost the Patriots. They lost the Patriots 23-20 ever since this game. They lost to the Patriots 23-20. They lost to the Falcons 14-24. I think they had their bye week after that. You shellacked Carolina. Ever since then, you've played pretty not great football. You had a good win against Kansas City, 28-21. You were at home. And then obviously you had that debacle 13-30 against the Dolphins. Then you had to have Josh Allen playing amazing to even beat the Buccaneers. And then you get shellacked on Thursday Night Football last week against the Texans. And in this game, you kind of benefited from the Steelers being absolutely atrocious. And offensively in the first half yesterday, they were absolutely abysmal. Like, they were garbage on offense yesterday in the first half. And it's another testament to my problem with the Bills. Like, unless Josh Allen just plays amazing, this team is not good. And honestly, if it was anybody else on the other side of that line of scrimmage against the Buffalo Bills yesterday, they probably would have lost. They did not play good yesterday. Josh Allen was 15 for 23, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He only threw for 123 yards. He had a passer rating of 75 and a quarterback rating of 70. Josh Allen was not great yesterday. James Cook, honestly, the only bright spot. They were able to run the football very well. And they got, again, nothing out of their receiving core. Keon Coleman caught a touchdown pass, a small pass that was 9 yards. Unless Josh Allen plays amazing, they're not going to win a playoff game. What they did yesterday and put on display in that game, they're not going to be able to win. And honestly, you got to take away 1 touchdown because they got a strip sack at the beginning of the third quarter. So you take away that. Offensively, they scored less than 20 points. And in the playoffs, it's best on best. You're not winning a playoff game scoring 20 points in the postseason. And unless they win the division, they're going to go on the road as a wild card team. And they have not played well on the road offensively. And their defense does not travel that well. Again, they benefited from the Steelers being absolutely abysmal. And unless they win the division, they're going to be lucky to get to the second round of the playoffs. I don't even have them getting out of the divisional round. They had a great season to start off. But their lack of talent continues to show each week. Josh Allen continues to press. Joe Brady, they can't seem to really want to run the football and kind of like invest into it. And I don't like the idea of James Cook getting 32 carries yesterday for 144 yards. I need them to develop that dual running back tandem that I've talked about with the Bears. Because I don't want to run James Cook to the ground because he had 35, 36 touches yesterday. Like a lot. Ray Davis, I mean, he had 6.9 yards carry. Why can't you give him the ball 15 times and give the ball James Cook like 20, 25? So I think Joe Brady's got to figure that aspect out, and they have no type of receiving. They picked up Brandon Cooks off of the street. You know, Brandon Cooks, he's relatively young. He came into the league young, but he is 33 years old, 32 years old. He's in the latter part of his career. It didn't work out that much in Dallas. He wasn't that much of a threat, and he hasn't been that much of a threat since he's left the Texans. So he's not going to do much for them. He had 1 catch yesterday for 13 yards. Keon Coleman, disciplinary issues. He was a no-show yesterday. Their best receiver was Dawson Knox. Literally, their best receiver was Dawson Knox. And mind you, Ty Johnson and James Cook, both of their running backs, were top 3 in receiving for them as well. So their wide receiver core between Khalil Shakir, Gabe Davis, Keon Coleman, Jackson Halls, and Brandon Cooks did absolutely nothing. Dalton Kincaid for this offense cannot get back fast enough. And you're facing all those good defenses in your conference. I don't think the Bills have a shot. But ultimately, the Bills benefited from the Steelers being atrocious. Offensively, they're terrible. Their scheme that they're running under Arthur is terrible. Like, they're just bad. Aaron Rodgers, and you know, I know a lot of people are trying to give him credit for this. He's out there playing with a fractured wrist. He wore this big cast in the game yesterday. At one point, he got a bloody nose. Like, what worse can go for the Steelers? Like, it's just all around. Just this team is bad. defensively. They are old. The Bills didn't have two of their tackles yesterday. And for some reason, Josh Allen didn't get sacked. Like, I know Alex Highsmith was out last week, but Alex Highsmith played. TJ Watt, we just paid you all this money. Where you at? Cam Hayward, we just paid you all this money as well. Where are you at? Alex Highsmith, where are you at? Like, where's the defensive line? You played against the offense. You got ran over. What is something, and I've heard it 1,000 times under Mike Tomlin, and the Steel Curtain, and the Steelers' mantra as an organization. We want to stop the run and run the ball. Newsflash, Steelers fans, you can't run the ball and you can't stop the run. The Bills rushed for 250 yards yesterday. 250 yards. They ran 2.5 football fields on you. Did whatever they wanted to do in the run. Aaron Rodgers, God bless him, 10 for 23, 117 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He's got a big old fat fumble, though. Mason Rudolph came in for a couple plays, whatever. Jaylen Warren, again, can't run the football. 10 for 35, 1 touchdown. Kenneth Gainwell, 5 carries for 20 yards. Let's look at the receiving core. DK Metcalf, traded him for a second-round pick, paid him all this money. He's like top 5 in most paid wide receivers this year. Yeah, he's out there catching for 32 yards. Meaningless catches, mind you. This team is bad. Like, the Steelers are, at this point, and this is no diss against the Rooney family. I'm not trying to cast aspersions or nothing of that nature. But let's be honest, the Steelers have been badly run these last couple of years. They have no plan. They're badly run because they've had no plan. Ever since Ben Roethlisberger has left, which was roughly 7-8 years ago, they have done nothing to try and establish some type of winning formula. Because the whole thing with Mike Tomlin, and it has been his whole career since the last 9 years, because they haven't won a playoff game since 2016, is I just want to be relevant. You know, I don't want to go through a rebuild. Like, I just want to be relevant. And I just want to be above 500. But guess what? At some point, unless you go through a hard rebuild, at some point, as an organization, you got to have that one season where you're like 4-4. You got to go 6-10 sometimes. Well, in this case, 6-11. You got to go 5-12 sometimes. You got to get that high draft pick, draft a good game-changing guy, because the draft, in comparison to the NBA, is super effective and efficient. Go ask the Niners. Had a couple bad seasons. They were able to get some high draft picks and draft some key players. Ask the Bears. See what they're doing right now? 9-3. At some point, you're going to have that bad year. Rebuild. And ever since Ben Roethlisberger left, you haven't had a plan at the quarterback position. This offseason, you waited on Aaron Rodgers. You didn't want to draft Shador because you're scared for a rebuild. You just wanted relevancy. You knew Aaron Rodgers would kind of be decent enough to keep you above 500. But guess what? Your schedule gets a whole lot harder. You're sitting at 6-6, and you allowed a team in the Baltimore Ravens, who were 1-5, come back and be number 1 in your division through 13 weeks of the season. If you would have asked me that Baltimore started 1-5, Lamar Jackson's hurt, this and that, I'm like, dude, somebody in that division's got to capitalize. Obviously, the Bengals have been without Joe Burrow. They've been without a quarterback. If you're the Steelers, you've been the only healthy team in the division. And obviously, the Browns, they have their own issues. So, like, if you're the Steelers, there's no excuse for you not to be number 1 in this division. And guess what? Through 13 weeks, you're not. Because Arthur Smith, the offense is crap. You paid all this money to DK Metcalf. He's not even close to being near top of the charts when it comes to wide receiver and statistics. You can't run the football. You're running this 3 tight end set with Darnell Washington, Jonnu Smith, and Pat Fryermuth, that's not working. Your leading receiver yesterday was a 300-pound guy who honestly needs to get put on the offensive line, and Darnell Washington, 2 catches for 45 yards. It's just bad. They don't have talent. They look old on defense. You watch them defensively, it's like, who flashes? Jalen Ramsey, they having to put him at safety because he's so old and can't move. Porter, maybe. Peyton Wilson, maybe. And offensively, God help them, they definitely don't have nobody that flashes. Only Jaylen Warren, but the offensive line isn't great. This team is just bad. And this leads to them having no talent. And it leads to them wanting to be relevant, and they waited on Aaron Rodgers, and they put themselves in this position. If I'm the Rooney family, it might be time to reset. And I'm talking about the head coach too. At some point, what have you done for me lately? And Stephen A., he brought up a great point before I started the show when I was watching. He brought up this idea, like, if you say this sentence, that no coach, as long as you've been a head coach, you haven't won a playoff game in 9 years, what other coach besides Mike Tomlin keeps their job? None. If you're Kyle Shanahan and you haven't won a playoff game in 9-10 years, you're not keeping your job. Because Kyle Shanahan, he hasn't won a Super Bowl. He doesn't have the cachet that Mike Tomlin has. Same thing for Sean McDermott. You're not keeping your job. Sean Payton, any other coach in this league. Yes, even Sean Payton, someone who has won a Super Bowl. Well, we've seen the Saints, like he left the Saints. But you haven't won a playoff game since 2016. Let's give a little bit of idea of how long that was. Patrick Mahomes wasn't in the league. Josh Allen wasn't in the league. Lamar Jackson wasn't in the league. Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown were the focal points of that team. That's how long it's been since they won a playoff game. So it may be time to kind of hit the reset button because their decline so far this season has been unprecedented. For a Ravens team to be 1-5 and be on top of the division right now is uncalled for. Like, this team is bad. They need the Rooney family. They need to hit the eject button on their team. Like, they can't hit it fast enough. Like, the amount of money that they're paying this defense, and they're old. They can't stop anybody. And they're bottom in all categories in the league. I'm off my tangent. I don't even want to talk about this team anymore. They're so terrible. That's my thoughts on the Steelers. Like, they suck. Jesus, I got so worked up after talking about the Steelers, and I'm not even a Steelers fan. I don't even care about Steelers. It's just bad teams, bad organizations, bad football just makes me mad. I just don't understand it. So anyways, I got like 15 minutes I got to get done to this show, so we're going to take this final minutes. I wanted to finally discuss the headliner for today's show. I wanted to go ahead and get into the action from yesterday, week 13, and end it off on a good one. We know the biggest topic in sports. It has overtaken the NFL this weekend. Everything. Basketball, you name it. Lane Kiffin. You've been living under a rock, which I know you haven't. I kind of got dissed in the comment section one time for saying this, but, it's my favorite slogan I like to say sometimes. But, unless you've not been paying attention to anything, Lane Kiffin took the LSU job yesterday. There's a whole lot of crap going on behind the scenes, things of that nature. Everybody's had their take about this. Was Lane Kiffin wrong? This and this and that. Everybody dissing Lane Kiffin. My main takeaway from this is the idea, and I quote tweeted it yesterday from my Twitter. I think I quote tweeted David Pollack. He covers college football. And I retweeted this. Lane Kiffin isn't the enemy here. The calendar in college football is. It's an absolute joke. Fix this crap, NCAA, playoffs, National Signing Day, transfer portal, all within the same month and time frame. Just straight up idiotic. I retweeted that. But I quote tweeted Dan Orlovsky. Dan Orlovsky said, "Feel for the kids at Ole Miss. Imagine they've been on a roller coaster of emotions. Their future seems to be very much so just up in air. both the immediate and long term, and their season doesn't deserve that. And I quote tweeted, and my response to his tweet was this: I feel like Ole Miss has very much mismanaged this situation. In the same token, the NCAA needs to regulate this operation better. We shouldn't have coaching free agency in the middle of the college football season. Not one person should point the finger at Lane Kiffin. Point it at the NCAA. Now, again, I'm young. Okay, I have not covered college football since 2018 and all these years. I've heard all the stories with Lane Kiffin and the backstory about him, with all the jobs he's had, the backstory. He's got his own E60 thing with the whole, trying to get back his image, this and that. So obviously I've known the historical context. So Lane Kiffin is technically not the best guy in college football. Like, he's one of the worst guys in college football. He sucks as a character. Like, he's a great football coach, but as a man, as a guy who you want running your program, kind of a, he's a butthole. He's every bad word you can come up with. I don't, family friendly show. I don't even cuss myself, but you get the gist of what the words I want to use. Okay. Every bad word, and I'm over here spitting because this topic here it's got me mad too. Every bad word that you can think about when it comes to Lane Kiffin, he's that, okay? In the grand scheme of everybody in media, and I heard this thing when Alabama had the opening for their head coaching job, when Nick Saban left, they didn't even consider Lane Kiffin because of the character that he is. I've got it all, 100%. So a lot of people is pointing the finger at Lane Kiffin for this, like, why would you leave, Ole Miss? You got a chance to win a national championship, this, that, blah, 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 blah. Listen. This is the problem with the NCAA, because us idiots in media try to cast the dispersions to everybody else but the NCAA. I am sick and tired of the NCAA. And this topic has really had me mad over the last couple of days, because I don't understand. And a lot of people saying, and I get this, I don't understand the idea that we are going to crucify a guy for wanting to take a better job. On what earth in America are we sitting here and going to criticize a man for wanting to take a better job? Guys, and I'm over here sweating. Guys, last time I checked, just a regular person, you work in a regular job. If you were offered $4 million extra at another job, any of you would say, haha, bye-bye, I'm getting more money. Isn't that the idea in our human nature? He was making $9 million at Ole Miss. Granted, Lane Kiffin has made bahukus of money so far coaching. Like, he's swimming in money right now. And he's going to be swimming in some even more money for the foreseeable future as a coach at LSU. And yes, I understand, like, dude, why would you go to LSU? Like, they already got to pay a $50 million buyout for Brian Kelly, blah, blah, blah. Listen, he got $13 million. He got a $4 million, $5 million pay raise to go coach at LSU. And let's be honest, LSU is the better job. We're talking about LSU. The history, the mantra, the brand, blue blood. He was at Ole Miss, Oxford, Mississippi, middle of nowhere. Hasn't done anything, literally nothing. Never been to an SEC championship, never won a national championship. They've done absolutely nothing. In what way does it benefit Lane Kiffin to stay at Ole Miss? Absolutely nothing. What? The idea of getting this, getting the fame and notoriety for, like, oh, wow, look at Lane Kiffin. He was able to take his team to the national championship. Guys, if we look at this roster for Ole Miss in comparison to anybody else, Ole Miss doesn't have a shot. Doesn't have a shot. They might have a shot. I'm kind of being just a little extra because I'm a little mad ticked off right now. Yeah, let's take it back. They're 11-1. They're in the college football playoff. They're a lock. They're a good team. Yeah, I get it. But guess what? Lane Kiffin's not there anymore. I'm not betting on this new defensive coordinator they promoted to do a job. And guess what? I think Lane Kiffin took his offensive coordinator with him. So who's calling the offensive plays? This team doesn't have a shot. And even with Lane Kiffin, let's be honest. When you look at the Alabamas, when you look at the Georgias, And everybody else, and I granted, I think Lane Kiffin and them beat Georgia or something like that. I can't remember. But do you think Ole Miss will beat Ohio State? No. Like, when you look at the competition across the college football playoff, Ole Miss has a long shot. They could win the first couple rounds of the NCAA college playoff tournament, yes. But the idea that they have a chance to win the college football playoff is nonsense, and win the national championship is nonsense. If you ask anybody who bets, honestly, all the betting strategists who bet and has this thing down to a T, how many of them right now would lay money down to bet Ole Miss to win the national championship if Lane Kiffin was still there? Not many. You probably have the people who probably want to bet on the underdogs just so they can get the biggest buyout of all known to man. I need to capture my emotions here. LSU is the better job. Blame the NCAA for what's going on. I've had a whole chart of notes and I still hasn't even got to none of them yet. We got to blame the NCAA. In life, you always want to benefit yourself at any point. So in life, if they offer me a job and I'm earning $4 million more and I'm probably going to a better situation, and that's kind of been the argument with a lot of people too. It's kind of like, well, Jayden, that's not the better situation, so to speak. I think LSU is probably as good of a situation as LSU. Fine, if you want to say that, whatever. I personally don't think so. You're going to a better known town. You're going to a big program, bigger brand, more NIL money, this and that, better recruiting, everything you can ask for. When you look at the spending so far in NIL, like LSU was top 10 in college football. And they just didn't have the coaching. Which Brian Kelly's a good coach, but he's a butthole himself. He's even worse than Lane Kiffin, I think. But Lane Kiffin's a good football coach. He might be a bad character when it comes to just, grand scheme of things, but when it comes to X's and O's, Lane Kiffin's a guy. He can coach. And plus, it seems like so far this year, the whole repainting of his image is happening in his locker room because his guys, he had these boys playing some good football. And ultimately, I think Ole Miss kind of mismanaged the situation. And honestly, and I know why, they had no choice. Because you have this idea, and this is because of college football and the NCAA, they are the problem with this. Why would you have a coach, and we're thinking in Ole Miss's sense, why would you have a coach who you know is going to go coach another football program, and who is a rival in the same conference as you, and let him finish out coaching your college football season when he's just going to hop up and leave once the season is over, probably take some of your players, and this and that. I get it. I understand it from Ole Miss's standpoint. I really, truly get it. But if you're Ole Miss, I really think Lane Kiffin would have questioned if he wanted to really leave if you didn't give him the ultimatum to begin with, saying at first it was before the Egg Bowl, then they changed it after the Egg Bowl, saying, okay, Lane, I need to know a decision. I need to know it now. I need to know if you're leaving us or not. If you would have said, Lane, you know what? Let's finish out the season. I don't want this to disperse across the locker room. I don't want it to affect the kids. I don't want it to affect our good season. This is a part of Ole Miss where I was talking about how you're not subject to winning because as a program, you're not accustomed to winning. So you're not used to making smart business decisions for winning. So you make the ultimate stupid decision. And I may be in the minority of this. I may be a little uneducated. I'll admit, I'm not the biggest college football nor of all here. I'm just giving my 2 cents on what I think is logical in this situation. And I think ultimately LSU would have waited on Lane Kiffin if he wanted to take the job. So if you actually were wanting to win a national championship so bad, you kind of would have been like, Lane, you know what? We're not going to worry about the situation. I don't care what you got going on. Let's finish out this season. Let's do what we got to do in order to kind of help win this national championship. Who knows? You might could go on to win the national championship, and Lane Kiffin would not even leave. Wouldn't even come close to leaving. If you're Lane, I know Lane would probably say, you know what? Just give me a pay raise. I'll stay. And look, and again, I know the other conversation with this is, Jayden, you don't know Lane Kiffin, the character. He has had the history of getting up and leaving anyhow. I totally get it. I understand y'all's point of view. But my whole thing with this topic has been, why are we crucifying a man for wanting to take a better job when we should be pointing the finger at the NCAA by them having coaching free agency in the middle of the doggone season? It makes no sense to me. How hard is it to set the precedent and be like, guess what? Let's move everything, transfer portal window, coaching hires and all this. Let's move that to after the season. You shouldn't even be able to talk with a coach till after the season's over. Why is it that hard for the NCAA to set that precedent? Like, is it really that hard? That's my whole point when it comes to this conversation. And people are just laying it into Lane Kiffin right now. Like, why? And, you had the pictures of everybody near the end at Ole Miss when he was leaving off the airport, giving him the middle finger and everything yesterday. If I'm them, I'm like, dude, kick rocks. Like, this ain't my fault. I got a better opportunity for my life, for my family. And it's the best opportunity for me. I feel like it's the best opportunity for me to win going forward in the future. If I had to sacrifice possibly winning a national championship for a better future for my family, for me, I'm going to take that chance. And he had Pete Carroll as a mentor figure, and he talked to Nick Saban, he said as well, when he had the interview with Marty Smith. He said, I talked to Nick Saban, I talked to Pete Carroll. They said, take the job. And he took the job. And I don't blame him for it. I would have loved for Lane Kiffin to finish out this season. And I ultimately think if they would have made the SEC tournament, which is kind of the reports, I think Lane Kiffin possibly would have stayed. Because if you were in the SEC tournament and you're going up against a Georgia, I don't even remember if they beat Georgia this year or not from the top of my head. But if you're Lane Kiffin, you like your chances. And if you win the SEC tournament, you get an automatic bye. So you're getting an automatic bid into the second round. You're going to get a favorable matchup. So this situation has been messy on all fronts. I understand Ole Miss's side of it. I understand Lane Kiffin's side of it. I kind of tend to defend Lane Kiffin for the most part. But the main takeaway for me, to summarize it all, I understand why Ole Miss made the decision that they made. I ultimately support and understand the decision that Lane Kiffin made. But we should all be pointing the finger at the NCAA as of today for the reason why all of this transpired. And I know, I listen to John Middlecoff and all these people. They kind of like what's happening so far because it's the drama, that the reason why people love college football. I get it. But I've been so just adamant and defensive for this conversation when I talk about it because I don't like the idea of people trashing a man, trashing everything that he's lived for just because he took another job. That, to me, is just wrong. And I kind of got mad about it. But that is it. That's all I got to say about that. Sorry I got so animated. You can see I saved the best for last. I know that was probably the most entertaining part of the podcast. But overall, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of today's show. I thank you all for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed these topics. I got a couple things we're going to talk about. We got Dallas coming up on Thursday night. We're going to get to that on Wednesday. Talk about a little bit about Bo Nix, talk more Bears. Got a lot that I'm looking forward to talking to on Wednesday with you all. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below, anything in the comment section. I don't think I have anything as of today, so nothing going on today. I love you all, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Peace, love, and positivity. Bye.